So set 2 of Fusion World, Blazing Aura, has given us 4 new leaders, and I just did the beginner guide for TOP Goku. If you haven't checked that out, definitely go ahead and check that out. But today, we're going to go ahead and go over our boy, Yellow Vegeta. If you haven't played Masters before, this is actually just a direct homage to Soul Striker. In that game, we did have Soul Striker be a blue starter deck character, and now it's a yellow inset character. And it's a little bit different now because the way that this game is, there's a pretty good emphasis on activate battle and as well as a combo step comparative to Masters, right? In this game, we do have a limited pool of some of the activate battle stuff. So when this first came out, it was kind of, it's kind of like a meh. It's like, oh, okay, 2 energy going to active. What's the yellow card pool look like for extra cards? And as we gotten more and more reveals, it got slightly better. Here's kind of the list that I've been playing for the last few days / week, and basically, the way that I see it for this leader is that you want to be as annoying as possible when it comes down to some of the stuff that you can lock down and have it in game with the 5-drop, 6-drop, 4-drop, or whatever it may be. And honestly, just like this list, the last one, any list this week, the ratios are going to change throughout the course of the format. As we get into the events for this month, technically, and as well as next month, this could completely change, right? But I think one of the things that you have to kind of focus on is, of course, the 4-drop Goku and a bunch of other stuff we're going to go through right now. But overall, if you just were curious about the deck and what I've been playing and what I've been playtesting, this is it. And like I said, it just gives that Soul Striker vibe kind of thing where you pay 4 for a thing, or pay 5 for a thing, or 3 for a thing, or whatever. You untap 2, and now you have access to some of the extra cards that you have in this card pool. And that kind of provides some viability and as well as just goodness when it comes down to extra cards in general, right? I believe as the game progresses and it kind of goes on, it should get better. That's kind of the concept was for Soul Striker and Masters, but some of the in-archetypal stuff, like we see with TOP, that might overshadow it because it's just super easy to build. It's very straightforward. You kind of already know what to do. But with these leaders, you'll see deck lists quite different from each other outside of a few staple cards that we're going to go over. And I think when it comes down to it is the extra cards, right? What are you going to be doing with those 2 energy at the end of the turn on your opponent's turn? And it just really depends. And overall, with the card pool that you have right now, it comes down to the 3-drop Gohan, the 4-drop Goku, the Coolers, the Friezas, obviously, the Vegetas that you use the Bulmas with, right? All of those are quite annoying. And when you go against a deck like this where you literally cannot bring yourself to swing with something because it is just tapped down and stayed there, it just becomes annoying. So when you do go against this, just be aware of some of the cards that do that. Now, the other part of that is that set 2 does bring answers for a couple of things. For instance, Blue Power Awakening allows you to pop something 6 costs or more, and that specifically is just an answer to a lot of the green stuff that you might be able to answer late in the game. Now, I think one of the things to consider is that like the green matchup with Frieza and as well as some of the other yellow leaders, like I talked about before, was already pretty good because you're just going to be playing quite a lot of things early on and you're going to be swinging. This is just more of a control deck. It's not so much of a aggro, go wide kind of deck, at least in my opinion and how I built it. You could probably build it that way, right? You can probably build, Frieza army and playing things like Ginyu and things like that, which I'll talk about in a little bit, which is why the deck variety can really be vast in that, right? You can just be playing different packages and then just relying on the untapped 2 at the end of the turn. Now, the other issue is that when you do end up doing that, sometimes the archetypal stuff like the Frieza's army and the things that you'd be putting in Frieza, you may as well play in that because you get the incremental value by untapping 2 blockers or untapping 2 a 10k and a 5k, whatever, right? And it just goes back to like, okay, well, the energy might be more important if there are better extra cards over time. And lastly, this is I would say, a pretty decent answer to aggro. Maybe. And the only reason why I say this is because you can't play blockers like Whis. You can't play blockers like Cooler. You can restand them with timer wound. You have Death Ball to tap down 3 costs or less, which is a huge variety in red decks and yellow decks, right? So some of those go wide decks, and as well as aggro decks, which now we do have one in TOP, Goku, can now be stopped with the non-restand stuff, and as well as your extra cards. And I think those are the things that you kind of have to consider when building this deck and just, going for it. Now let's talk about some of the key cards that come out of FB02, and as well as what they do, right? So you have the Vegeta, the Gohan, the Goku, and the Frieza. They all kind of do something similar in the way that the playstyle of the deck this deck wants to have as a playstyle. The Vegeta in itself protects all of your rest mode cards from being KO'd as long as it's on the field. So if you have this 3k or 3 costs and then like a Frieza in rest, then you're good, right? Obviously you can swing with this and be in rest mode, whatever it may be. It just prevents itself from being popped from like Cell or Broly, maybe even 3-drop Goku, those type of things. And it does come up. The on play is that you can add a card from your hand and then play a 1 cost, which we took a look at that Bulma. There's also Sorbet to draw. There's a bunch of stuff that we'll go over. And then we also have Gohan, where as on play, your rest mode opponent's battle card can't be switched to active mode during your opponent's turn. Now, the reason why I play this card, and you may not see this in other builds, there's 2 reasons. One, 3 cost 25Ks are really good, just like period. Because the reason why they're really good is because by the time you're at 3, your opponent's either not going to have an answer for a 25K, or they have to commit cards in order to remove it. Either it may be energy, or it might be a 20k swing plus 5, or it might be something else, right? So you want them to actually use that for that. The other thing is that against red decks, you're stopping a hit. Against a lot of blue and green decks, where by turn of 3 or 4 they might have a swing, like a Vegeta or a Turles. It might differ. And you can just play this on play and then swing 25 to your leader. It just becomes a pretty good value card. It's only 5k, and it is only 1 target comparative to the Goku that we have on our right. So this is probably why people will not play it, which, might be a flex spot, right? Might be something that you might play something completely different, and more power to you. I have no qualms against that. But one of the things that you should be playing no matter what in this deck, because it's an SR, because it is a 10k, because it is a 25k power, and because this is on play and attacking, where you can choose one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode and can't switch to active. And this becomes a huge issue for your opponent, right? 25k already is kind of annoying to get rid of. Sure, like blue can bottom deck of a Vegeta. Sure, red can reduce it and swing into it or pop it with something else. Green has maybe 2 ways to get rid of it now. And it's I guess Gohan is one to watch out for. But the reason why this is so good is because it has that when attacking. It just gets so much value over time. So your curve becomes 3 costs, either one of these, and then 4 costs Goku, and then 5 costs Frieza, right? It just becomes that sort of curve. And honestly, I just like the Gokus, because it just becomes something where you're just swinging over and over again, and they're just not being able to play things. And if you're playing the Frieza, you can just keep that rested, swing into a leader for double strike, or swing into one of their battle cards for pretty big. Now, this other Frieza is that when your opponent's the permanent says your opponent's battle cards are 5 or more, is played in rest mode. So a lot of the green cards are going to be affected by this. Vegeta protects the Golden Frieza in that matchup. That's the whole concept behind it. You play the Vegeta, you swing with it, you protect it, or they just can't KO it. And then by the time you play the 6-drop, you pop something in rest mode, and then when you swing back to them, all the stuff they're going to be playing in 5 or more, like it says, like the Gohan, like the whatever, like the Broly, like the Cell, are going to be played in rest mode, and they cannot pop while the Vegeta is out. That's the whole concept behind it. How practical is it? Kind of. It just depends. It really just depends. The format is becoming a little faster because of TOP Goku and because of Kefla. 4-drop Kefla just accelerates some of the stuff that you could play in red in general. And, you know, yellow is already kind of annoying, but it really just depends on the playstyle that you have, depends on the cards that you draw and how defensive you are. And you're going to learn how to do that with this deck specifically. Now, when I talked about the 3-drop Vegeta, here are the targets that you would play, at least in this deck. I'm sure you can play some other 1-drop targets, but these are the ones that are relatively important. We already know the Sorbet, we already know the Frieza. Sorbet is important because you get the double draw. Frieza is cool because you get to tap down something. The 3-drop Goku, or 3-drop Gohan, 4-drop Goku, and as well as the Friezas all get super good value from the 1-drop Frieza just being played for 1 anyway. The Vegeta is good because you can just go for 2 for 1. You take a life, you play the Frieza, tap down a 1-drop for them, you swing it with the Frieza or something else with your leader, whatever it may be, and then you get super good value. Now the Bulma is interesting. Now this is the thing. I don't know if I really like Bulma. You know, like I feel like this is, yeah, automatic 4 of if you're gonna be playing it, whatever, right? The thing is that she's only a 5k, which is just silly. Like, you have to do an activate battle for this chick, like, right? It's like, if there was a main in battle, I can understand a 0 cost or a 5k, but because it's an activate battle only, because you have to have a 3 cost or more to draw a card in rest mode, that is, can be anything, sure. And it only affects 4 or less instead of 5 or less, it's like whatever. But it is only a 1 cost, which means it is almost always going to be a draw card when you be swinging with this Vegeta or any of the other targets we talked about. And you can be able to play multiple ones to draw, right? The other part of it is that it does help you as a Self-Awakener. So the Vegeta in this is already 2 life. So by the time you are at 3 energy, you're going to be able to do both of these guys there. She isn't going to be able to be popped with a Vegeta there as well, which is nice. And time around after you awaken, we'll be able to untap her as well. So if they swing with the 5k or 10k or whatever, timer 1 will be able to untap her. And then when they swing with their last swing, you can just go ahead and rest her again, draw a card, and then just get that value over and over again. It's like a very convoluted way to play Genyu on your opponent's turn, right? And the other part of it is that you are able to switch a 4 or less card to rest mode, which is why this might be a staple for this deck. It might be a staple for the meta because of the OP Goku and because of red and because of yellow. You know, the already good decks out there, right? 4 or less is quite a lot. I was wanting 5, but I'm greedy. But 4 or less is quite a lot. It affects pretty much all of TOP Goku's cards, and it still has a pretty decent range for a lot of different things. So I like the card, but I am very apprehensive of it. I would love to see a very good pilot use the card over time. And that's pretty much it. Now the extra cards. So the only 3 that I play in this deck, which are definitely the only ones that are worth playing right now on your opponent's turn, are going to be Death Ball, Time Rewound, and Blue Power Awakening. Now, Death Ball is pretty cool. A quick misplay, shout out to Eric, is that if you boost your leader or boost whatever you're attacking, they're attacking 15k. Obviously, if they're swinging 30 to your leader, this is a quick 15k to get out of that, and then you can rest a 3 cost or less. And sometimes they just can't work around that. If they have multiple cards, which is very possible with some of the decks out right now, 3 or less is going to be very easy to get out or to rest, and it's just be very annoying for your leader or for your opponent. Time Rewound is interesting because you get a 20k on your opponent's turn, pretty similar to some of the other opponent turn only stuff that we've seen. But you are able to untap one of your battle cards to active mode. So your 4 cost cooler can get another rest or pop. Your Whis can restand after swinging twice. We'll talk about that. Your Bulma is now protected. The list goes on, right? And some of the stuff where I found, you know, red leaders like to minus things and they swing into it, Time Rewound gets right out of that because now that you force them to swing into something else, which is nice. Blue Power Awakening, it gets a nice 25k power for your leader or battle card. This is really good for game. And honestly, you know, if it wasn't a 2k man or 2 cost, I would probably run this at 4 or 5 or 3 or 4, right? I only running at 2 right now. I probably would bump it up at 3 or 4. I will need to continue testing, but for now and for the sake of this video and as well as for you to just get started, you definitely should consider it at 1 or 2 or 2 or 3. All right, some of the other cards that I do play in this deck, and you know, a little experimental with the Whis and as well as the Cooler, or Whis, Cooler, and Frieza, right? So Frieza is going to be some of the part of the win con that you might have. It also gets really it gets a lot of value from all the stuff that you're already doing. When attacking, obviously keeps something in rest. We already know how good this card is. There's no confusion about that. And honestly, you know, I mean, having all these zero cost combo cards like the 6-drop and as well as the 5-drop, I'm very tempted to like go like one way with it. So like removing the 6-drop altogether from the deck and then just playing 4 of the Friezas. So that way I just have a curve over and over again, like keeping alive that Goku that swings and keeps something rested, and then having the Frieza over and over again after that and untapping 2 and just defending yourself might be the way for this deck. But for now, again, as preliminary tests go and as well as deck lists go, I think this is fine. Now the Cooler goes well with Timer Round. Like I said, you can protect something. Well, you can block with this. You know, they combo something, you combo something. You can protect yourself with Timer Round and then restand this. You can block again. You can rest 2 things. You can pop 2 things, whatever it may be. Cooler is a good card. It is a 30k swing. And yeah, I mean, there's not really too much to really talk about. We already kind of know. If you played Yellow before, this is no surprise. Now, the new addition here is going to be the Whis, where it's a 4-cost 25k blocker, similar to Cooler and similar to the King Cold that you might see. The new one that you block something and then you restand it. I think conceptually this card is pretty cool. In practice, not too bad. You know, you get to play it for 4 if you have no other 4 costs. You have no Goku to play. You have no Cooler to play. This is not too bad because you are immediately going to be able to use the energy on the falling turns and as well as your opponent's turn. Being able to block and then restand it for 25k is no joke. It is a 10k combo at worst, and technically you can swing with it twice. I've won with this card because I was able to swing with it twice. So I think you shouldn't underestimate this card at all. And the way that this deck plays and how slow it is, then you should be able to play this pretty easily. Now, considerations. Now, I did talk about the last Whis. Here's the other Whis. I've seen this in other lists. It's a 30k body, so that's pretty big. You get to untap one of your cards at the end of the turn, so it can be your leader for some reason, your energy, or any of your battle cards as well. So any of your blockers, this card, your energy, whatever it may be, right? I think it's okay. It's only a 5k combo. 35k is no joke. But by the time you're playing for 5, you should be playing Frieza instead. So if I was going to add these guys, I would be adding more Friezas. And, you know, I'm terrible at keeping at 50, which is why most of my decks are 51 or 52. So I'm the worst person to ask where I should fit that in. Crusher Ball is interesting because it is another rest mode card. It's just a draw 1. I still haven't considered this card to be decent in any format or any deck, but because you are able to untap 2, you get to replace itself. You get to tap something down, which gives you an option for 4 cost, 3 cost, or 5 cost Frieza. It's not bad. You know, I think it's gonna be okay. But because of the extra card, that's why it's not in the main deck. I'm like whatever about it. 4 cost Frieza, again, timer wound at 4. You might as well just get some value out of a 40k swing. However, because you don't get as much value as you do in the other yellow decks like Cooler and as well as Frieza, you probably don't want to play this card. It is cool as a beat stick, but for 4, again, you've seen all the cards that you could be playing and you just get so much more value. So I don't really consider it to be good. All right, so my first build had Ginyu in it because I was playing so much Frieza Army stuff, and getting the free 2 energy and being able to untap 2 at the end of the turn, you know, that type of thing, it just kind of went pretty well. Plus you're able to get another 20k swing, and you can just sort of get into more of an aggro build that has defense, right? And I think you really have to lean into it. Just like I said before, if you're going to be playing all of the Frieza Army stuff, which you're going to have to do that with this deck if you're going to be playing Ginyu or other way around, really. Then yeah, I think you just really have to lean into it, and I think sometimes it just doesn't work out. So I first did it and I removed it because it just became too much commitment, and sometimes it was just a 2 cost 20k and it just wasn't good enough. Supernova is cool. It goes well with literally everything that you're doing. It gives you an option to play and use your energy, because sometimes you end up having a awkward energy count, and you really just want to use your energy because you're gonna get it back anyway. The only downside is that it's only during your turn, but you are able to get that offensiveness that you need for the deck, and just be able to use the 4 cost or less effect, which is nice. Kui, because Broly is still around, I just didn't add it to the deck. If you can find room for it, maybe you should. It goes well with the deck. It is a 10k combo at the worst, and that's it. Frieza, with all of the cooler or the King Cold stuff that you can restand, either the one that pops something when it gets KO'd when it blocks, or I mean just KO'd in general, or the one that restands. This could be pretty good. It's just that, again, it's in that 4 to 5 slot, right? All the King Cold stuff is not searchable outside of Frieza Army, I guess. And then, you know, for 4 or 5, I feel like you just could be doing more, right? All the carpool stuff that we talked about before just feels a little bit better. All right, that is it. You know, just a simple guide and stuff that you can consider. I didn't really play a full testing session, or at least put it on live. I've been playing off camera, and I think this is a pretty decent build. I think, or at least like a decent leader. Let me put it that way. I think TOP Goku is the best out of the 4. This is like a contender for second. I think between Cell and this one is definitely second from the 4, and then Zamasu's at the last, until a good deck builder, I don't know by myself, or just until it emerges a pretty good deck list for that. I don't know if it's any good, but I will say Yellow Vegeta is definitely worth exploring. Try against some of the red decks, and then update your deck depending on the format, right? We're gonna see a lot of red. Green is still going to be around, and yellow is going to be a good fallback for a lot of people when it comes down to the regionals. And for green, or not green, but blue, we're going to see some Vegeta and maybe some Trunks, you know, because there's some support. And I think the people who are on Copium like me will try it out. Either way, I'm done blabbing. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what your deck list is if you join our Discord as well in the description below. And subscribe if you're new. I'm almost to 10k. I'll see you next one.